So every month, gardeners are spending way too much money trying to feed our garden. This one little change that I made helped me to save hundreds of dollars a month and still be able to feed my garden. Let's talk about it. So if you guys haven't figured out already, we're talking about compost. A simple change that I made was just adding a bucket to my countertops as we cook. After I did a tally of how much we were actually throwing out every month, I was like, yo, like I didn't physically count like every banana peel or apple core. But what I'm saying is I would look and just take a mental note of what was being thrown away. And I was like, man, we're throwing away a lot of food scraps that can be composted every month. So instead of going out and buying fertilizer, why don't we just compost what we already have? We already paid for it. So let's compost it and turn it into food for the garden, right? Because here's the genius part about human beings. We're so smart that we throw out the food scraps that we could be using for fertilizer and using to feed our garden just to go buy it again in another form. Like, makes no sense. And the motivation behind this video, honestly, was I was watching another YouTuber and she was saying how her and her husband like to juice, and they were spending hundreds of dollars a month on vegetables and fruit. And someone at the store one day, they was like, hey, the cashier was like, hey, you must create a lot of compost with all the juicing that you're doing. And they were like, yeah, sure, yeah, that's what we're doing. But they weren't, and they were gardeners, but it hadn't crossed their mind for them to actually compost what they were, the waste from all the juicing. So I was like, well, how many more people are out there that it hasn't crossed their mind? They didn't know about it. They didn't think that they could because they live in a small space. So let's talk about it today. The thing is, I know a lot of people feel like you have to have a large space in order to compost, and that's not true at all. You can, like everybody, every single person, regardless of the size of where you live at, the size of your home, apartment, or whatever, you have space to compost. The only question is, are you willing to do it? We're going to talk about that a little bit later. So like I said, the only change that I made was I put this bucket on the countertop. I use a bucket. Do you have to use a bucket? No, but if you have a bucket, use it. But you can also use a plastic bag, a Ziploc bag, a bowl. It doesn't matter what it is, just as long as you have something that you can just mindlessly throw your food scraps into. That's the name of the game. That's what all this is all about. I know people are going to have a couple of concerns. One concern would be, well, I don't want that stuff sitting on my counter attracting gnats and flies and stuff like that. No big deal. Put them in a plastic bag, throw them in the fridge or the freezer. Just don't forget that they're in there, because that would defeat the purpose. Another concern, like I said, would be space. You don't have to have a ton of space. You don't have to have space to set up composting bins or a composting area. If you have the room for that, by all means, do it. If you don't have the room for that, you can also always use a tumbler. They make the tumblers that you can buy on Amazon, or you can go to some of the big box stores and pick them up. They work just as good, right? If you don't have space for a tumbler, you could always use a 5-gallon bucket. We're not going to go over composting procedures in this video. We're going to save that for another video. But just understand that you can use a 5-gallon bucket, which we're going to show in another video, to compost right in your kitchen or right on your balcony or your patio or your front porch. That's why I'm saying everyone has the space. It's just, are you willing to do it? I mean, it is 2025, y'all. They are actually making countertop composters right now. Okay, they're making countertop composters, and they're making composting trash cans, which is crazy to me, right? But it's crazy, but it ain't crazy. Like, if you understand the composting process, then it's like, wow, that's crazy. They're able to do that inside of a small bin or a trash can. That's cool, right? But it's a better way to keep your food scraps out of the landfill, and instead put them into your garden, and it's going to save you a ton of money. Like, what if follow me on this, let's go with me on this. What if you didn't have to buy fertilizer anymore because you put so much compost into your garden that your soil is just naturally rich and healthy, and is doing everything that you wanted to do and everything that it would do even if you added fertilizer? I'm just saying. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's an idea. The one thing that changed our garden for the better was adding the availability of getting those food scraps from the kitchen to the garden and producing us some nice rich black gold. Like, the compost is so beneficial that it actually was able to help turn our garden around last year. Because last year, I think it was last year, we used a lot of the free compost that came from the city. A lot of it wasn't done cooking. It was still cooking. And by the time we used it in our garden, like, We had stunted growth. We had a lot of things going wrong, and that was a big mistake on my part. But I had already had compost available that I was making, and when I took that compost and added it to where I was having problems, it completely turned them around. So that's the small change that we made that allowed us to go from kitchen scraps to the compost pile to feeding our garden. So if you found this video informative or valuable in any way, please hit the like button. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. We will see you guys in the next video, and here's another video for you guys to watch to follow us on our gardening journey. We see you in the next one. Peace out.